Hi folks, this is Alexander Gottwald again, and this time, for the second time, presenting you to Irene Caesar. She holds a PhD in philosophy, I guess, and she is Russian and living most of the time in the United States. And we already had one interview. If you didn't see it, maybe it's about time to watch it. And we are this time diving a bit deeper into the origin of mankind, about talking about the history of humanity and maybe an alternative view of the history of the Earth, and then get to the present and the situation we're finding, especially, of course, in Eastern Europe and Ukraine and Russia, and where it will all lead us. Hi, Irene.
Hello, nice to see you again.
Yeah, I'm happy too. So, I recently had two interesting interviews, one with a German journalist who is into conspiracy about especially economy. And I asked him what he thinks about the origin of it all, and he went back to 18th century and the foundation of the Illuminati. And well, I then had another interview with a Canadian Jewish author and blogger, Henry Mako, and I asked him more or less the same question, and he went back at least to ancient Egypt and said that it's about those roots of Kabbalah and Egyptian magic and mind control. But well, my own research leads me a bit further, and I would like to have your opinion on where you see the origin of mind control, of the idea of world government, and what kind of influences are we facing there?
I completely agree with you that vision of the past is completely crucial for the present and the future, and those people who control the past, they would control the future. And right now we are seeing the gross misinterpretation of the past, and moreover the destruction of the past. So those people who attribute themselves to the Illuminati, they're actually going around destroying our past and literally destroying the ancient cities, the ancient artifacts, and actually planning to destroy more. In Syria, in Iraq, they hire rogues, criminals, who under the rules of the Islamic radicals literally go around destroying the ancient cities. And what they do, they take the bulk of the artifacts into the private collections of these people, of this group, and destroying those artifacts that don't correspond to their version of the history. And they plan to do the same thing to Egypt. So I would like to use this opportunity, this interview, to actually warn Egyptians that just a couple of days ago in the Qatar newspaper, there was published an article where the Islamic so-called terrorists, right, radicals, extremists, they published an article that they are going to blow up, to make an explosion of the Egyptian pyramids. So this is crucial stuff, and people should get aware of this. And if there would be a wave of resistance on the internet, in the blogosphere, and this might change actually the situation. So it's very crucial that all of us are aware of this and all of us actually resist to this thing. And you are completely right. Also in that aspect, that history of mankind does not go only to Egypt and only to Darwinian, humanoid monkeys, and if we change our view of the past, we actually will be able to make a quantum leap. So the only thing that holds us from the quantum leap is our wrong vision of the physics and of the history. And physics and history go together. So physics tells us that the universe is holographic, meaning that it's present in its entirety, in its every matrix point. So this actually means that humans are matrices which are indestructible and uncreated, and non-local wave matrices that have the infinite tokens in the infinite number of dimensions. And there is the instant transference of the information between these tokens. So if we are capable of grasping the structure of the bioholograms, which are these wave matrices, we are actually capable to change our physical reality. We would be capable of changing physical laws. So the laws of gravitation, the laws of time and space constraints will not actually operate for us. So we will be able to cure incurable diseases. We will be able to have unlimited access to energy, resources, and food via the process of transmutation from quantum vacuum. We will be capable of making trips through the teleportation portals. And this is actually all available as of today. So I would like to use this opportunity of this interview to deliver this information to the world public, that all this technology is available as of today in Russia. We actually are right now, as of today, are capable of controlling the biosystems via the remote laser signal. We are capable of controlling weather and climate via the remote laser signal. We are capable of getting energy from the quantum vacuum as of today. And there are anti-gravitational, spaceships existing as of today in Russia. So, and the only thing that is holding us from this technology is the wrong ideology and the wrong view of history. And the view of history that is used by the so-called Illuminati is the view of history and ideology based upon Darwinism and upon Sigmund Freud. And this view actually says that there is evolution from the humanoid monkeys on this planet. And as of today, it is proven that this paradigm is completely wrong. First of all, human genome is older than the genome of the humanoid monkeys. It's proven. And there are artifacts that are humanoid artifacts, human artifacts that are older on this planet than humanoid monkeys. And also the science, quantum physics already have proven that we have abilities that actually override, as I said, the paradigms of Newtonian physics. Also, the gorilla fetus in the womb of gorilla, female gorilla, develops till the 8 months and a half basically as a humanoid baby, and it becomes a monkey only the last stage of development. So all these things actually tells us that the Darwinian theory is simply wrong. Also, all the artifacts that are found on this planet tell us that there was not the history of evolution on this planet, but the history of devolution.
So, sure.
Yeah.
Let me jump in here a bit, because of course I agree with you. Darwin was a high degree Freemason, and he was the grandson of 33rd degree Mason, who had the intention to create kind of a doctrine to destroy Christianity. That was his main aim, and to create a materialistic view of creation of mankind that fits in with communism. And that's exactly what communists do. They get to Darwinism and they say there is no God, there is nothing, and it's just all about eating or being eaten and so forth. And so we need to force people to become social. That's what the basic agenda of communism is, because humans are evil and humans are animals. And so if you want them to be social, and you have to force them to that. And that's what communists use as a justification for murdering as they wish anyone. No? And so what I found quite interesting is studying the teachings of Velikovsky, to get back to the far past, because he said that we were facing cosmic catastrophes, which include a very interesting point that he says that before this sun was our sun on Earth, Saturn was the sun of the Earth, and that, for instance, the deluge was a result of our Saturnian system getting in touch with this sun and burning out, and then huge amounts of water were set free and were creating the deluge. And that this was then used by kind of a caste of priests who told people then it was their fault and that they got punished because they were evil. And but if you look at that story, in the end, there is this one son of Noah after the deluge who is then walking away to other people. So how can there be other people if the deluge destroyed all the people? And also when Cain had murdered Abel, and he had to leave the garden, he got this mark from God. Who is this God? No, and this mark was said to have protected him. And also that means that Cain was aware of people being outside the garden, first of all, and he was afraid of them. And third, this kind of mark of this God protected him, so he would survive. And so who are these beings that made this garden, that created these people we know, like Adam and Eve and Cain, and who were these people then Cain was walking to after he was kicked out of the garden, and who were the people this son of Noah was approaching after the flood, after the deluge.
You know, with the deluge, it's very interesting that there are many stories of the deluge, and one of the stories is prior to the Old Testament or Tanakh, and it is told in the epos of Gilgamesh
Sure.
epos, Sumerian epos, and in this epos, Gilgamesh befriends a primitive man who's barely speaking. He is half animal and half human. You might say Neanderthal man. And he starts cultivating this man. And the story ends with this man by the name of Enkidu taken on the ship, on the Vimana, and he dies of radiation. His hair and his nails fall out, and Gilgamesh is very distressed by the death of his friend Enkidu, and he decides to get more knowledge of the universe, of the immortality, of the gods, and he goes to the north. He goes to the north, he crosses the sea, which is evidently the Aral Sea or the Aryan Sea, which is to the north of Iraq. And he meets with the immortal man who survived the flood by the name of Utnapishtim. And he goes there specifically to meet the gods. So this means that the gods of the Sumerian civilization are living on the territory of Russia. And this means that they are Russians. So Russians were the gods of Sumer. And I made a discovery, and I actually would like to use this interview as an opportunity to announce this information also. So I made a discovery approximately a year actually ago that the Sumerian civilization, the Sumer, is actually the Samar civilization, because vowels were not written down, only consonants. And the epicenter of this civilization is the city of Samara. So in other words, the Sumer is actually Samar civilization. And this was the integral civilization for Samaria in Palestine. Then there is the Samara culture in the North Syria, which is dated 4000 BC. Then there is the city of Samara in Russia, and the river Samara in Russia, and the city Samarkand in Asia. And according to the Brahman Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and according to his famous monograph, the Arctic home in the Vedas, the Aryans were descending from the North Pole, from the Russian Arctic, to the south. So this actually means that the civilization was moving from the north to the south. And in the Old Testament also, in the book of Ezekiel, Ezekiel says that Vimana, or the fire chariot, was flying from the north. And both the ancient Jews, who were Negroid Jews from the tribe of Seth, which also called itself the tribe of Judah, in the land of Seth, which is the Upper Egypt, Negroid Egypt, they place the god, and the gods, actually, they speak of the gods in plural in the Old Testament, they place them in the north. And also the ancient Greeks, they place the gods in the north. So the Mount of Olympus is not the mountain as a mount, as a hill. It's a North Pole, as basically the top of the torus of this planet. So
and also, what is also very interesting with this story of Velikovsky, who is not the only one telling that Saturn once was the sun of the Earth, we had a monopolar world. And the Earth did never change its position towards Saturn. And there was a plasmatic connection between the Earth and Saturn, which was building for a visible mountain of plasma, of energy, which was the connection to Saturn, to this god, to this old Olymp. And the interesting thing is, when you study those myths, you always find something behind it, which is about history. And the interesting thing in modern history is that you see them always deny that. They always tell you, yeah, that's old myths, and they didn't know better, and whatever. That's all. They were stupid. And so, from my perspective, it's very important to understand that this from the north, that this ancient history of the Earth indicates that there was a civilization around what we would now call the North Pole, because that was what had the connection to Saturn, and which was then when the Sun and Jupiter showed up, was then kind of lighting up and bringing what was known as the Golden Age, because then there was more light. But that was only temporary, because then Saturn burned out, and then they had the deluge, which, of course, as you say, is not a story that is at all from the Bible, but it's something you find all over the world. These kind of reports from a big flood, a big deluge, is not just Gilgamesh and the Bible, but it's you find similar stories in the Mayans. You find in many cultures, also in Asia, in ancient China, you find similar stories of, and so this must have been something that has affected the whole planet, and that happened at a certain time, and of course then was rewritten and retold later to use it as a religious tool to indoctrinate people. But I think it's really important to get into this understanding of this energetic monopolar world that once existed. And from my perspective, what we now are facing with this Illuminati cult is that they're trying in a black magic, weird, absurd, destructive way to re-establish this Saturnian monopolar world, which just doesn't exist anymore. But in the genetics of people, it still exists. So they can kind of hypnotize people into believing them and their agenda of this monopolarity, while we long have developed into something else, but people are not aware of that. That's the tragedy from my perspective. What do you think about that?
I completely agree with you that these people, Illuminati, they precisely would like to control technology, while the control of consciousness of people and ideology. And with this, to finish with the Sumer, I call this group of people as the Satanic Zionist Alliance. I don't call them Illuminati, because Illuminati is basically the so-called era of enlightenment, as it is given in the conventional history and philosophy books. And these people are evidently not enlightened. They have nothing to do with enlightenment and with education and with freedom, liberty, and fraternity. You know, this will all disguise for bringing basically the slavery. So these people are after slavery and after holding back the human civilization, technology. They literally sabotage quantum leap. So I would never call them Illuminati. Also, these people are from Caucasus and Ukraine, southern Ukraine, present-day Ukraine and Caucasus, and I prefer to call them Illuminati from Berdichev. You know, Berdichev is a small city in Russia, and this city was the area of settlement for the Khazarian pseudo-Jews who converted into Judaism in the 8th century. And since you can become a Jew only by the mother's blood, they are fake, because their maternal DNA is literally Russian. And this is proven by their own research. Mossad has just issued a report, secret report, in the spring of 2014, which actually confirmed that their maternal DNA is Russian. So they count their lineage by the mother's blood. So by the mother's blood, they are Russian. So they're Russian. And in the Russian Empire, they were allowed to live only beyond the level, the area of settlement for regular nations of the Russian Empire, because they were conducting human sacrifice on the permanent basis, and they were caught many times on this. So they were actually pushed to the areas where they were allowed to live, and this was called area beyond the border of settlement. That's how it was
And this
called.
is
So these are
this is
those
also
people, Illuminati, they were
yeah,
not
sure,
allowed even to live in the
sure.
normal cities because they practiced the very primitive rituals of this tribe of Seth in the land of Seth. Though those people, Negroes from the tribe of Seth, converted into Christianity 2,000 years ago,
The Copts, the Coptic Christians then. Yeah, sure,
Ethiopian or Beta Israel or whatever you call
sure.
them, they
And
converted
the
a long
point
time
is,
ago from
let
this
me
horrible stuff.
let me get to this Seth point also and the human sacrifice, because Saturn is very well known, and Kronos in history, in mythology, is well known to have eaten his children. So it's very obvious that someone who would do religious practice or magical practice with Saturn would use child sacrifice and human sacrifice. And that's what also an author who wrote a book about what he calls the Saturn death cult. And he said that over time in history, more and more children started to disappear, and that this is part of this sacrifice, this blood sacrifice, and which is complete black magic. And so to get to this point, which will bring us then also to the present day Ukraine conflict, I guess.
I have some few points about your other issues that you're talking about. So I will finish about
Sure,
the
but the point
emergence
is,
of the civilization. I have a few points more to make.
yeah, but I think it's very important to acknowledge what has happened. And if what has happened is hidden from people, they can't acknowledge it. So once people could acknowledge that Saturn once was our sun and it died, it's like your father died and no one tells you. And you think it's somewhere, and then someone tells you, "Oh, you need to sacrifice children. This will make your daddy happy." Yeah. So, and you will do everything just to get back to your daddy. And so, this is, from my perspective, somehow how humans are held hostage in a way, like being drawn into this satanic cult that's going on, which is called civilization, and which is about to destroy this planet and humanity. And but it's in the end like you have to do more, you have to kill more, you have to do this, and we have to make war for humanitarian reasons and whatever. And it's like in the end, this hiding the death of Saturn from people, and if we can just acknowledge it and say, okay, we once had this situation and it changed. Saturn died. It's no longer our sun. We have this other sun, and we are having this precession now. We are having seasons on the planet. All this was not there in the far past, and which also is reported in history, and there is proof also on an archaeological basis. But it's hidden. And as you say, they use this Darwinist thing and then they say, yeah, in the far past there was just monkeys, and there were dinosaurs, and then monkeys, and then kind of by accident humans evolved from that, and which is completely stupid and makes no sense, and there is no evidence even for that. But as I said, I think there is an agenda why they do it. It's not just, well, they are telling us a story, and but there is a reason for hiding the true history of mankind, and also using this completely false radiocarbon method as proof then for history, because the radiocarbon method also is evidently false, because it can only be true if nothing would have changed on Earth during the past thousands of years. And this also, according to Velikovsky, was just not the case. And so I think it's very important to take that in account, that we still live with kind of the genetical information of this monopolar world. So we're looking for that in a way, because it is our past, and we're not really aware that this past no longer exists. So this is what this, if you call them Illuminati or whatever, I agree that Illuminati is not an appropriate term for them. But this is what they're using. This is the only advantage they have. They know they give a fake history to people, and I'm sure they know the real history, and they just use it not in the correct way, because if you know something, you need to tell it to people who don't know, and to be open, like we both now are talking about what we know or what we believe we know, whatever, but that we share the knowledge. And what they do is they try to get an advantage from not sharing and cheating on people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually don't agree that they know the history. This is the whole point. They have some artifacts that they were hiding, for example, giants and facts about nuclear wars in the past, using all kinds of weapons like plasma weapons and all kinds of other so they are hiding artifacts, but they don't have the paradigm, the vision of what it is. And what they're doing is in technology actually reflects their lack of understanding of the past. You see, because they're trying to build like dragon ship, for the interplanetary travel. But we cannot travel on the ships because we are literally made by the electromagnetic field of this planet. If we go far away from this planet, we get literally destroyed together with our ships. And even if we have the machinery that reproduces the electromagnetic field of the Earth, it will still get destroyed. You understand what I mean? So the whole paradigm of traveling on the ships, like star to track, right? It's wrong. And it's wrong scientifically. It's not wrong by the belief. It's wrong by this pure science. So in other words, we can travel on the ships. We can travel only through the teleportation portals. The portal is a scientific notion. It's not a mythology. It's not ideology. It's not history. It's just pure science of quantum physics. Portal is a 0 point of the wave crystal, which get crystallized within specific dimension. So everything is a torus. The universe is a torus. This planet is a torus. Our genome is a torus. Torus exists in two forms. A spherical form where when it doesn't have borders, it literally pulsates from the macro to micro dimensions, simultaneously and instantaneously existing in the infinite number of dimensions. Then it crystallizes in a specific dimension. This is the second form of the torus. It becomes a wave crystal. So we exist literally in the wave crystal. Universe is 93% energy and only 7% particles. It's a fact. If you open this magazine Science or the Nature of the United States, this fact is in this magazine. So everything is basically is a pulsating torus and wave crystals, and each one of us is this torus. When we sleep, We are the spherical torus which simultaneously and instantaneously present in the infinite number of dimensions. That is why humans in their sleep, they think of themselves sometimes as of different gender, right? Existing living in a different epoch, historical epoch. But when we wake up, we get into this limited matrix, right? Which is a wave crystal, which crystallized in this specific dimension. That's why it got finite criteria like time and space, right? It got limitations, gravitation, and other physical Newtonian laws, right? But we still are connected to the zero field of the universe through the zero center of our wave crystal. Humans can focus this zero center, or they can lose the ability to focus this zero center. You see, for example, animals, each animal is not the wave matrix. They actually share the collective wave matrix for the genus, you know. And this was, they actually transmit information instantaneously. You know, insects and birds and monkeys, they had an experiment when they taught monkeys on the island to do something, right? And this information got actually transmitted to other monkeys on other islands without direct physical contact. So it's scientifically proven that they show the one common wave matrix for the tribe. But humans, actually, each one of us have individual wave matrix. And this is the quantum physics. It's not mythology. It's pure science. If you listen to the most advanced United States scientists, this is precisely the lingo that they speak. You know, and there is the implication of the holographic principle, because the universe is existing entirely in every matrix point. It's given in its entirety in every matrix point. That is why every matrix point is not just different from any other matrix point, but is unique. So we are unique, indestructible, uncreated, non-local wave matrices. So actually, if we know how to operate this technology, quantum leap technology, information wave technology, we can actually travel to the past and to the future. This is also not mythology, not black magic. It's pure science. And
sure. And it is the essence of what I'm practicing and what I've been teaching for the past, I don't know, the 10 to 15 years to my clients in this process I call Let Go and Live. Because waking up is nothing mythological. That's the main thing. The religions and also spiritual cults, they kind of hijacked the process of waking up and try to obscure it and try to lock it away and tell you have to meditate for the next 30 years and sit on your ass and wait and wait and wait and give all your money to the guru, for of course.
Yes,
and then
so
maybe you will wake up. So that's the basic point, that it's here now, in this very moment. It's accessible in this very moment. We just have to be quiet, and it's there. There is no secret to that in the end.
So when I make some assumptions, I like to move very slowly. So, for example, you say monopolar world. I don't believe in monopolar, because torus, when it crystallizes, it actually functions with the laws of the geometric optics. So literally, we get sphere, which becomes wave crystal by the laws of reflection, emergence of the negative cover of this crystal, wave crystal. Then each signal, external signal, enters this wave crystal. It gets reflected from the opposite pole and changing its spin state. And we get diffraction grating inside the wave crystal. And every new signal, external signal, gets nullified by the scalar wave diffraction grating emerging in the wave crystal. and it gets refracted towards the focus or the center of this wave crystal. Again, this is not my assumption. This is precisely the laws of the so-called polarized holography of the quantum leap technologies. This is how the lasers with the internal causative mirror operates to actually remotely control biosystems, climate, and geophysical processes. And this is available as of today. So you don't have to have HARP antennas in the Alaska to control weather and climate. You can control climate, weather, and geophysical processes and biosystems via the small tabletop laser if you know what you're doing, because in quantum physics, in quantum non-locality, zero field, there is no time and space, and size doesn't matter. Only what matters is the structure that you get. And we as humans, we function as lasers ourselves. Our bones produce stem cells by the bone marrow, because our bones have literally the structure of the laser tube with the internal causative mirrors. So any signal that enters the bone, it gets reflected. We get scalar wave that nullifies any external signal, and any next external signal actually gets reflected towards the zero center. And through this zero center, we actually get information. Infinite information from the infinite storage of information. Our skull is also a causative mirror where the signal gets actually reflected. We get scalar wave, it nullifies the truth, and peak and the truth of the scalar wave reflected nullifies itself, and we get diffraction grating and the zero center of our skull to get the information. This is pure science, it's not mythology. So this planet is also a torus. To get out of this planet into the other dimensions, we actually need to use portals. North Pole is simply a portal of this torus. It's not mythology. It has nothing to do with all these fairy tales of Freemasons and Illuminati. It's simply a torus. The entire 21st century will be a fight for the North Pole, because it's possible, if you have very advanced quantum technologies, it's possible to actually create wave crystals of teleportation portals to come into this dimension. And actually Americans, they made a movie about residents near Arkaim in Russia, this ancient swastika city of Russian Aryans on the territory of Russia in southern Urals. They made a movie about local residents who constantly see wave crystals opening in their gardens, and people, humans, coming out of these crystals into this dimension. But this is the advanced level of technology. On the first level of this technology, we will have to use North Pole as a teleportation portal, because this is precisely how our ancestors came into this dimension. So, in other words, there is no evolution paradigm or linear or monopolar history. History is simultaneous. There are infinite number of dimensions of the past and the future exist in the same time. And the universe is not structured by spatial expanse. These people who think that they will go to the other planet and do to the other planet the same thing they did to the other planet, basically robbing and raping this planet, these people are simply don't understand anything, because the universe is structured by the spiritual principle, and spiritual principle is precisely the principle of quantum physics. So the next high dimension is the dimension of the more structured, wholesome, and this means moral and aesthetic together. So ethics and aesthetics are inseparable. To go to the other level, you should be pure matrix, like a child. So in other words, no evil can go through the 0 point, because 0 point is the structured wholesomeness of everything. It contains the whole universe. So these people who think about evil reptilians coming to this dimension, they are just stupid, because they have just wrong idea of the universe. I agree that there are virtual projections who exist on the astral level, who basically phantoms, who hover around this Taurus. They can be demons and spirits. They exist, but they don't have absolute existence. They're destructible. If you're strong enough, like a laser, they will not be able to do anything to you, because they're literally phantoms, shadows of this civilization, and they don't have absolute existence. So, and
Are
when
you referring to this David Icke story of reptilian gods on Earth?
this is reptilian story was actually planted by the Rothschilds. This was planted to such a degree that they have for 50 years, they have this program, which was actually announced by Werner von Braun on his deathbed, and then announced by Reagan that there will be alien invasion, which actually will help them to usher in the new world order, which is actually global Zion. And global Zion is simply a Khazar Turkish empire of people who lived in Berdichev in southern Ukraine. So these are southern Ukrainians with maternal Russian DNA want to usher in the Turkish empire. This is all about Zion, you know.
Let me